Hello, we have that synchronicity. Isn't that great? Thank you. Oh boy, it's great to see all of you this morning and be here together. Familiar faces and new faces. Welcome. Thank you for keeping your divine appointment this morning. Oh, and I would also like to acknowledge, we have a lot of angels behind the scenes doing things, and there are some food angels and hospitality angels this morning. And so if you were one of those angels, can you stand so we can acknowledge you? Thank you. Thank you so much. So I like to begin with the story. Okay. Yes, we'll get to that in a minute. But this story is about, Albert Einstein has been popping up in my mind a lot lately. He was in last week, and I think because he's an archetype, of a wise genius that we see. And an archetype is a pattern. So we have that wise genius within us too. Yeah. You can call it the Christ. Christ within. But this story is about Einstein when he was going to speak in an important science conference. And on the way there, he told his driver, I'm sick of all these conferences. I say the same thing over and over again. And the driver nods his head and he says, you're right. I'm not even a scientist, but I could go up there and give this talk. And Einstein looks at him and is like, we do look a little bit alike. So Einstein says, that's a great idea. Let's switch places. So they stop the car, change clothes, and when they get to the conference, the driver, dressed as Einstein, comes up on the stage. And Einstein, dressed as the driver, sits in the front seat. So everything's going great. He's giving the talk. But in the crowd is one scientist who wants to make a name for himself, and he wants to impress everyone. And he stands up, interrupts the conference, and he asks a very complicated scientific question of Einstein on the stage. And there's a hush in the room. They're wondering, was he going to stump Einstein? So he asks this very complicated question, and the driver just kind of comes over, looks him in the eye and says, Sir, that question is so easy, I'm going to let my driver answer it. Flash of insight. Have you ever had one of those? Yeah. Isn't that a great story? So we've been talking about wisdom, how it can come in a moment, in a flash of insight. And sometimes we wait for it, and wait for it, and pray for it, and have patience and keep on knowing it's on its way. Our answers, wisdom and guidance are on their way. So are we there yet? Is it spring yet? Yeah. Is it here yet? Tomorrow, right? Yeah. Are we there yet? How many of you went on long car rides as a kid? Your family piled into the station wagon or the van. There were 5 kids in my family, and that was a familiar tune. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? But there was such excitement and energy around it because we know we were going somewhere fun, and when we stopped, we would just fly out of the car and go in the creek and splash around or run in the grass and tumble or whatever. It was a sense of freedom was waiting for us on the other side of that. Despite our parents' attempts to get us to appreciate the journey. Did your parents do that too, or those you were with? Let's play I Spy. There's a dog. There's a tree. Well, the kids in the back seat who are already going like this, they decided, let's play slug bug. The VW bug every time you saw one of those. Yeah, until somebody started crying, and then, it was not fun. But sometimes we can start out with excitement too, but get impatient. And isn't our spiritual journey like that sometimes? We're excited, we have a path, we're going for it, but we want it to come sooner than it is. We want that prayer to show up sooner. And we have to have patience. And maybe you've heard this prayer or prayed this prayer, God, please help me to have patience and make it quick. There's a few definitions for patience, and I like this one. Quiet, steady perseverance, and even-tempered care. Even-tempered care. So on the outside, having patience looks like, what does it look like? Doing nothing. That's what it looks like on the outside, right? But on the inside, a lot is happening. We're trusting God, we're holding the vision, we're maybe weighing and evaluating information that we have, we're waiting for more information to come in. There's a lot going on inside. And even-tempered care suggests the power of love at work. We talked about wisdom and love working together and how they can strengthen each other when we use them together. And one of the most often Bible passages quoted, 1 Corinthians 13, 4-7. How many of you had this at your wedding, maybe? Yeah, it's beautiful, beautiful. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable, but keeps no record of wrongs. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. So are we there yet? Maybe a better question is, are we here yet? Yeah. Are we here yet? In this moment, to claim love's presence. And the meditation was Emmett Fox's golden key, and he called that the secret to harmonizing any trouble when you feel worried or stressed about something, just to spend several seconds claiming everything you know about God. So your mind is shifted into God. And so in this moment, let's try that again. In this moment, there is enough love. There is love live streaming from our hearts and to us all around us. And so I tune in, turn on, tap on, turn the tap on, listen with my heart to the heart song of God. God is love. God is that healer, that harmonizer, that holds it all together, the in-breath and the out-breath, and the space in between. God holds it all together in the decisions and the space in between the decisions. So let us claim the fullness of love now in mind, body, and spirit, and let the eternal mind inform the human mind. Relax the nervous system, that all questions of the heart are held in love as divine order and wisdom. Fill in the details and guide us on our way. So whenever you find yourself stressed, just have a little golden key break. And affirm for several seconds. You're at that stoplight or in the traffic, nothing's moving, you're starting to feel irritated. What do you know about God? Just let that broadcast within and ring inside of you. So patience, love, strength, wisdom. Eric Butterworth is one of my favorite Unity ministers and writers, and he said this: divine guidance is not an outside force acting upon us. It is the seed of our own divinity seeking to unfold into greater manifestation. So how many of you are gardeners? You work with seeds. You know that for the seed to become the fullness of what it is, it has to crack open. It can't remain the same. So there's something in us that our hearts open to this greater wisdom when we're open to divine guidance. He also said, you cannot really make a wrong choice or a bad decision. Any step you take will eventually lead you to your good, because a negative experience encountered will produce the challenge in which to outgrow the kind of consciousness from which the choice was made, leading to a higher consciousness from which more constructive steps will be taken. So a wrong choice is a right choice at that particular time. In other words, he's saying you can't get it wrong. We make the best choice we have in the moment from the highest level of consciousness we have in that moment. And we know that we are each, that you are an expression of God. At the point of awareness that your consciousness can hold, we are each an expression of God. At the point of awareness that our consciousness can allow. And that's when we come here, we widen that. I like to think of a funnel, every time we tap into God, into this truth, we widen that funnel for more information, for more knowing, intuitive knowing, that we are created from love, from the energy of love itself. So knowing this, can we please stop beating ourselves up for things we did long ago or even last week? And have more self-compassion and patience with ourselves, which will help us have patience with others. Has anyone prayed for patience lately? Yeah. So Jesus had some powerful teaching stories. We'll get to that in a minute. Jesus had some powerful teaching stories about compassion and self-compassion for this human journey that we're on. That isn't always easy, that has challenges. And you may remember the story in the book of John where Jesus goes up to the Mount of Olives and he's faced with a group of scribes and Pharisees who are eager to execute a woman caught in adultery. And they challenge Jesus. They say, the law of Moses commands that we stone her. What say you, teacher? What do you think we should do with her? And we read that Jesus pauses and he writes something in the ground, on the sand, on the ground. And then he looks at them and he says, let any among you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her. And then he writes in the ground again. And one by one they leave. And Jesus is alone with the woman and tells her, no one is here to condemn you. I do not condemn you. Go your way and sin no more. So in effect, he's saying, we all make mistakes. I'm not judging you. No one's here to judge you. Don't judge yourself. Just learn from it and make wiser choices next time. So we see in this love and wisdom working together. And in the Bible, and metaphysically, each figure and event represents something on our own human journey, spiritual journey. So we have a little bit of a metaphysical lesson here. So the Pharisees represent the state of consciousness that is fixed on the outer customs, the way it's always been done, the letter of the law. Jesus represents the spirit of the law. In the story, the Pharisees refer to the intellect, which can act without love or compassion. So Jesus represents the Christ self as our ability to rise higher, to a higher vantage point in the face of any intellectual arguments, and our ability to add love and wisdom to our decisions, our decision making. The Mount of Olives is a high consciousness of truth that Jesus elevates to, that we are able to elevate to, and from this vantage point, see more, where love is part of the equation. And we see Jesus using wisdom and love to teach a lesson on brotherly love to the intellect, as the scribes and Pharisees subside, go away. So this story shows us how our intellect can press upon our spiritual nature. Have you found that argument happening sometimes, that the intellect can list all the reasons why you should do this, should. But something in you is like, but it doesn't quite, there's something more, So the intellect can press the spiritual nature, and say, this is how it's always been done. What are you waiting for? Let's get on with it. What are you going to do? But our spiritual nature that we have has the ability to pause, get grounded, access that higher wisdom, that Christ center. Goes for the wider view. And so we have the ability to, anytime we feel those stones of blame and shame that we just want to hurl at others. People have told me when that they watch the news, this happens a lot lately. To pause, to breathe, to go to that Christ center, now we can drop the stones and let them be stepping stones to living with greater love and compassion for ourselves and for others. This human divine experience that we're in. The part of the story when he says, "Neither do I condemn you," speaks to the overcoming power of the Christ mind doing its perfect work. So right now you have this capacity within you, the Christ mind, to do its perfect work with love and wisdom, informing you for any choice that you may be facing, any decision that you may be facing. We just lean into that. You can lean into that this week. Sometimes a delay in a goal or a heart's desire that we've been praying for, there's a delay because there's some inner work that needs to happen for us to accept what we're praying for and to appreciate it. So part of wisdom is knowing that there's divine order, divine timing. There's the power of love at work, bringing all to wholeness, a greater wholeness at work. And so this week, I invite you, if a choice comes up, a question comes up, you might want to, of course, take it to prayer and allow divine wisdom to speak to you. And just for fun, could say, that question is so easy, I'm going to let my Christ self answer that. Thank you.
Now is the time in our service when we bring forth our gifts for Unity of Carlsbad.